What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review an album that's kind of a follow-up to a video I did a couple of years ago. Basically, this album is by The Alchemist. Basically, this album is by The Anarchist, and it's called The Anarchist, the album, and it came out in the summer of 2022. So The Anarchist, for those who don't know, he's a more underground rapper as far as those pitches kind of happen. He's kind of on the come up around these particular type times. He's dropped a series of albums since about the early 2020s as far as those pitches kind of happen. But basically, I did a video about a song that he did a couple years ago, which he got one of the Deuce's comeback songs. Deuce from Hollywood Undead. He had a series of comeback songs that he did between 2022 and 2023. So it's a pretty excellent pitch that Deuce was doing some of that music. Deuce did drop like a pseudo kind of album. There was someone that bought like a bunch of verses by Deuce in 2023 and dropped an album in the summer of 2023. So it's a good pitch. But the Anarchist was the first one to really fuck with Deuce on his comeback when he started doing more interviews and pitches like that throughout like the summer and between 2022 to about 2023, pitches like that. Now Deuce is kind of in like a relatively weird space around these particular type times. It's kind of a mystery as to what he's really up to just within those pitches, just the concept. But he was a little bit more affable and feasible back in 2022. So it's just kind of the concept, an excellent pitch that the Anarchist snagged a couple verses from Deuce around this particular time. Now, basically, bring it back. There were two songs that the Anarchist did with Deuce, at least. There were two songs that the Anarchist did with Deuce. You can find both those songs with Deuce on the Anarchist YouTube channel as far as those pitches kind of happen, along with this particular album. I would have to say the other one didn't, but the particular song by Deuce that was on here is pretty blistering. I'd have to say, and this the overall appeal of this particular album is pretty sheerly excellent. I'd have to say this is a classic album, a circa the early. The Anarchist album is definitely a classic early 2020s album. I'd have to say in particular, just does a lot of things right, has a lot of good, excellent type pitches going to get on here. It's definitely like I feel like the inspiration behind this particular, I feel like the fire behind this particular product is pretty high just within the appeal behind it. I kind of feel like music within like the early 2020s just kind of has like its dispatch of kind of being here and there, kind of being more here and there as far as those pitches kind of particularly happen. And some of the folks from like internet rap of like the 2010s have kind of vanished or just have not really put out as many classics either as far as those pitches kind of happen. There's folks like, you know, JB has disappeared, Deuce has disappeared, Dennis has disappeared, folks like that. Belay has disappeared. There's folks around that particular atmosphere. There's other ones like Cinema Bazaar has disappeared. Some ones that were relatively popular, some internet rap and just internet type appeals of like the early 2010s and mid 2010s that just has had a differential type aspect just within that pitch. But I do like the thing about the underground is it's always evolving and thriving as far as those pitches. And I feel like the Anarchist is definitely someone that has like some of that thrive just to be able to have the aspect of breathing some new life into these particular eras. And he could probably wind up being one of the bigger artists like the 2020s, I'd have to say. So the Anarchist has been around since at least 2017. He created his YouTube channel approximately 2017 as far as those pitches can happen. I don't know how many full blown products he's had, but he might have had like some mixtapes or some pitches like that were kind of floating around. He has a SoundCloud as far as those pitches kind of happen. But in terms of like downloadable projects, the thing about it is the availability behind this product seems kind of sparse as far as those pitches going to happen. I don't know if this is available for purchase. I mean, it's at least on his YouTube, this particular album, The Anarchist, but I just look after it kind of within the pitch in terms of like trying to find this and locate this particular product is a little bit more low key. But there are, like in more recent times, like from 2023 forward, there are some ones that kind of have like some availability. Like some of these are starting to pop up on iTunes and some of these type pitches. So it's an excellent type pitch. Kind of get a lot of this just within the appeal behind it. So this is a blistering type one. Really do like the quality behind it. So out of 8 songs on here, I wound up recommending all 8. That's pretty excellent type pitch. So I'm just going to talk about these, just be able to say about it. I want to assume that the single was Bring It Back with Deuce. It's pretty excellent type one here. It's like a great buzz, energy, and trill kind of alternative club flavor. I'd have to say about this one. Pretty excellent type pitch. Deuce sounds pretty ghastly on here. It's kind of the pitch. I mean, I think the thing with Deuce in particular is just the concept of just questioning whether or not he went to a studio to record some of this. I look after it's just the amalgamation behind Deuce kind of being a particular mystery just within the pitch of how things kind of particularly happen, just the whereabouts and just the aspect of his background. You kind of get the sense that Deuce has kind of been having like some crazy living as far as those pitches kind of happen, going to nightclubs, pitches like that, enjoying himself just within the tone behind it. But for the most part, it is very much like vaporish and just kind of underneath the aspect of just kind of being shrouded. And that's pretty excellent type concept because Deuce didn't really display this sort of vibes back when he was dropping music more regularly with, you know, albums like 9 Lives and Call Me Big Deuce, the mixtape, some of those type pitches, and even Invincible was a different tone. So it's just kind of Deuce really has like some ethos of mystery on these times that he was on here. But the Anarchist really does well on here. He has a pretty good pitch and introduces like this club type concept. Just really handles the beat type well. It reminds me of like the song Hot Nigga by Bobby Shmurda. Just within that pitch has that shrill type. It's like a shrill type club thump as far as those pitches going to happen. I look after this particular product right down to the album cover and the back of the album cover. This is a very ghastly type product. It's not as much full-blown horrorcore, but it does definitely have like some Dracula-esque, this kind of Transylvania-like type hauntiness to kind of get about it. This album is not packed with club songs as far as those pitches going to happen, but I do feel like Bring It Back is like a nice club thump to kind of get on here. It just really has like the energy and harnesses that appeal of like Hot Nigga and some of those type pitches. And the Anarchist holds his own going, teaming up with Deuce on here, I'd have to say. So he's pretty good, competent lyricist to be able to get this. So it's a good concept. This is like pretty raw hitter to kind of get here. Just what I had to say. So another one that's real nice on here would be This Life. This is like a pop rap kind of grab, I'd have to say about this one. Just a glazed kind of after work shift kind of rumination, I would feel like about this. Pretty good concept for that. Gives like some Eminem recovery vibes, I'd have to say, similar to that type pitch. It just like more acoustic, kind of Love the Way You Lie type pitches. Some of those type bears, there's folks who have done that, like NF, some of those type folks, and it's like a good vehicle stretcher to kind of get here. It's a good just some good pop rap kind of makeshift as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just an easy type one, just showing that Anarchist has some of that pop rap appeal where he did. It shows that Anarchist has that pop rap appeal where he didn't need to go in that direction. So it's a pretty good pitch for that. I feel like another one that kind of has that relative appeal is Time Bomb, just within the sense. Now this one's kind of pop rap as well, but it's just not quite as acoustic and not quite as makeshift, I'd have to say. It's like a dark kind of pop rap club gem, I'd have to say about this one. Has some basic bounce, but it keeps like the gothic flavor about it. Pretty good pitch for that, and it's like a decent dance cut, I'd have to say, and some good turn up to overall kind of get here. Now this one is not quite as thumping as Bring It Back, but it definitely has some. It just is a little bit darker, has a little bit more just overall pop rap type appeal about it. A little bit more commercial for like the times. Now there's not like a super ton of really like 2020s club type gems for me to really notice in today's times as far as those pitches kind of happen. So trying to compare it to some of these folks that are kind of trendy around this time is just less kind of just kind of less within that, I'd have to say, but it is a pretty good concept. Kind of see some of that relative type socialness to kind of get. This kind of reminds me of something that like standard pop rapper Flow Rida, some of those type folks would kind of do, just almost like EDM, but just kind of in like a more dark wave type 10. I'd have to say something like The Weeknd would do if he were to do more club, just kind of in your face type club typeness, just kind of get it. Just really feels like another radio grab on here to kind of get just within a more shrouded type sense. Now, I feel like Bring It Back just has the more vicious type energy. That's probably like the most feral turn up off this particular album. But I would definitely say Time Bomb is pretty good within the aspect of just having like some decent commercial kind of entry type stuff. Just kind of get like some, initial kind of kickoff. I'd say a pretty good vicious follow up on here for the most part. Pretty good pounding type one is Mr. Scott. Now, this is a diss song, not really as full blown sure as The Who in particular, but it is a pretty nice one. Kind of gets a nice solid bop to kind of get for like a diss song that has like the social bite about it. So this is like a pounding kind of nightclub noise about this one, and horror tinge kind of commotion. I'd have to say definitely a good gothic bop to get crunk, and it brings like some night grime to it as far as those pitches kind of happen. Mr. Scott's a pretty good pairing with Time Bomb and Bring It Back. I'd have to say in particular just a more vicious type turn up to kind of get here. I look after the aspect behind it. The thing about it is in particular, this one's a little bit more, Mr. Scott's a little bit more brutal than Time Bomb. Time Bomb's a little bit more pop rap just within the tone behind it. They're both pretty shrouded type ones, but this actually has some blistering type appeal. I feel like the more social commotion would probably be Bring It Back, but this is a nice one to kind of get some noise going and some commotion as far as those pitches will kind of happen with it. Just good gothic typeness kind of get here, but most of this album is pretty just within the shrillness of just like the aspect behind it. Not quite horrorcore, but just within the tone of like a real dark gothic kind of sheen about it. Dark Side is a pretty nice one as well. It's like a glazed kind of forlorn kind of personal. I'd have to say about this one, just a moody kind of NF like radio grab. I'd have to say a pretty good concept for that as far as those pitches kind of happen. Nice smoky hook from the Chica that does this particular one as far as that kind of goes. This reminds me of something like Florence and the Machine, one of those type hooks as far as that particular kind of goes. It's real nice, buttery, smooth, smoky type one. This is like an overcast kind of makeshift type tune to kind of get here. So this is something for a more cloudy type pitch as far as that particular kind of goes. Is that just looking like the Mansion album cover by NF, some of those type pitches just within the tone behind it, just cooler weather type pitch, something like that. Just kind of out and about, but just within the concept, just real. This feels pretty good to get some of these pop rap type grabs on here. So that's really about three that has some pretty excellent concepts that just having like some good radio appeal. I'd say Time Bomb, Dark Side, and This Life are all some radio grabs that showcase a lot of appeal as far as like that the aspects behind being able to have like some good commercialness about it and just being able to shoot for higher grounds as far as those pitches gonna happen. So I definitely feel like there is some attempts on here to be able to break past the underground. It succeeds for some of these, I'd have to say. Good pitch. Intro is pretty quality. There's like an eerie kind of ghoulish intro with like some initial heat, I'd had to say, and by that I mean in like the lyrics. I'd had to say it's like a good album kickoff, I'd had to say, and this is just like some oozing kind of venue noise, I'd had to say, pretty crowd pleasing kind of get here. This good pitch kind of have some of this, just like the aspect of just being able to suppose like there's some good basic kind of excitement, roll up some greens, some pitches like that, just be able to have some good times for like some night just pitches like that. It's real ghastly typeness to be able to get here, but this really works for like some good venue energy. And then beat drops is a pretty vicious in quality. Well, it's like a gothic and Dracula like night commute. I'd have to say about this one, just a good get supplies, kind of smoking like the cold air type tune to kind of get here. And it's like some haunting brush about this particular one. This overall has the bite about it, just some good winter type brush kind of get here. Just a real aspect of just appreciating some of these times. It's kind of out and about type commerce, some of those type fairs, gas station runs, Taco Bell runs, something of that, just within the crispness of just being able to get towards it. Some of these type ones, I feel like intro beat drops are some good ones for that. I'd probably have to say that Dark Side is a pretty good one for that as well, just within the relative type tones. A little bit more, that one's a little bit more commercial, a little bit more like a little bit more peppy towards it, I'd have to say, but it's still I mean, it's moody, but it's just more of like a pop rap kind of radio grab within the pitch. But Dark Side is moody, but it does have like some radio grab type appeal about it, so it's just kind of within the concept. I feel like intro, beat drops, Mr. Scott, some of these type ones are good for like some night commerce, similar to like 3-6 Mafia as far as just picking up goodies, getting some smoke and some of those type fairs. But yeah, that's the concept about this particular album. So it gets a 10 out of 10. The social score I'll go ahead and give like, I mean, in terms of the aspect as to how full blown the notoriety behind it is, I do feel like the Deuce song definitely displays like some social grabs as far as those pitches kind of happen, the casual type appeal. I would go ahead and give the album like a 9.75. I just would have to say, is this within the aspect behind it? The only real reason why I wouldn't get a 10 is just because the availability and just the concept as to how many full-blown folks would be able to find this particular product. I mean, you have to know about Deuce first. It just seems more likely that you're going to know about Deuce first as far as those particular pitches kind of happen. It's just the more low-key aspect about it, and just like the relative kind of just more and here and there type fashion as far as like the overall notoriety. I mean, I do feel like the Anarchist is pretty solid within the viciousness that he has. He has a pretty great aesthetic and pitches like that. Definitely some pop rap kind of grabs and some of those type fairs. Definitely has the appeal of being someone that could be marketable. He was able to snag a Deuce features and pitches like that. Just a lot of good aspects as far as those pitches kind of happen, but this is more questionable, kind of more in like the low key type fashion as far as how many full blown folks are going to find this product. So I definitely think the notoriety behind it is definitely deserving, but it's just kind of the concept between the availability of like the album for purchase and just like the concept of like whether or not that he's going to be discovered is kind of the pitch behind it. But I look after 9.75, still pretty vicious. So in terms of the future, like I was saying, the Anarchist has some other products as far as those fairs kind of happen. I look after it. He has a series of albums now. He's been dropping as recent as 2024, so there is some good pitches here. It's just good, excellent type concept. But this is a very ghastly type one. It's just a burst of energy here, just ripped out of 2022. I was not expecting an album this blistering out of the early 2020s. Just makes me question if there's other folks like the Anarchists and folks like that that could have some of this compound type viciousness, because it's like a good, I feel like this competes now. You can say that there might be folks from like the 2020s that are signed to labels and pitches like that that might have some heat, but it just would be interesting to see if the 2020s could do what the 2010s did with some of these folks that are more low key, like Blood on the Dance Floor and JB and some of these types of folks, and Belay and Deuce and some of these type folks that just have more offhanded type albums, some of those type fairs, just to be able to get to some of those within the approach behind it and get some of these folks to the forefront, because it's definitely worth it. This is definitely, I mean, when you listen to this album, I mean, unless you're just like completely notched like commercial aspects, I'd say that there's a lot of good appealing type ones. The production on here is pretty sheer. There's NF type songs, there's recovery type songs, there's plenty of good club songs on here. There's like some this shroudedness, this a lot of Dracula like this kind of hauntedness. There's plenty to get excited about here.